Have you ever driven down a lonely road at night? Have you ever felt like something was watching you from the darkness? Have you ever been truly afraid of the one that chills your bones, tightens your neck, and leaves you feeling sick for weeks? Friends of this community, first of all, I thank you for allowing me to publish my story on this YouTube channel and for making one feel confident in telling these experiences that would not be believed in any other context. My sister and my father, those of us who lived through it, were ridiculed when we dared to tell it. They made fun of us. They told my father that he was probably drunk. They made fun of us to such an extent that what for us is proof that the paranormal exists became something we never talk about. An experience that we have stopped telling and that now, several years later, I share with you for the first time. We live in a small town just over an hour from the capital city. We are connected by a road that is not in the best condition. It is mostly 2 lanes long, and at night it is very, very dangerous because it has quite a few curves and almost entirely lacks the slightest lighting. We have to travel this road continuously 2 or 3 times a month since my grandmother lives in the capital, in an old neighborhood where she has lived all her life. She gets along really well with my mom, so almost always it's just my dad and my sister or me, although sometimes we try to go all 3. We usually try to get back early, so that night doesn't surprise us on the way. But one fateful occasion, when we were celebrating a birthday with her, we left my grandmother's house after 10 at night, without the slightest idea of the horrible experience we were about to live through. As almost always, as soon as we hit the road leaving the city, I fell asleep. I completely missed the trip until we got home and the car woke me up just as it stopped. On that occasion, when it stopped, I opened my eyes expecting to see the lights in my yard all around me, but no. The only thing I saw was my sister's scared face in the front seat. "What happened?" I asked her. When I got up, I noticed that my father had gotten out of the car and I couldn't see anything around us. We had stopped on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere in complete darkness. "What happened, Karen?" I asked her again, and it took my sister a moment to come to her senses from her shock and answer me. "A man crossed us. I don't know if we ran him over." "What do you mean you don't know?" "I didn't feel anything." "Are you crazy?" I said to her as I also got out of the car to see what my sister's crazy idea my dad had fallen into this time. I saw my dad's silhouette a few meters behind the car, barely illuminated by the flashing lights. I walked slowly towards him when these flashing lights went off. The darkness was absolute. I couldn't see anything. My dad turned his back on me, and I couldn't see what he was doing. He was just crouched down as if checking something on the floor. "Dad, is everything okay?" I asked him in the next second that the flashing light illuminated him. I saw how he got up. When he stood up, he was over 2 meters tall and was quite a bit longer and thin. Evidently, what I was seeing was not my dad. "Alexa, run," my sister shouted from the car, and I knew something strange was happening. I ran and saw how my dad was also running from the opposite side of the car. We practically threw ourselves into the car almost at the same time and put the locks on. My dad started the car and told us that there was something out there. He pointed to the front. But I couldn't stop looking back. That elongated silhouette lit up with each flashing light, and I don't know if it was me or my imagination, but I saw it getting closer and closer. "Dad, let's go!" my sister shouted, and my dad kept looking straight ahead. Concentrated, he was pale and totally soaked in sweat. I also looked ahead as far as the opaque headlights of our car could illuminate just at the edge of that light. A figure suddenly crossed the road. Coming out of the darkness, a thin, dark figure, walking like a person when they try to walk with their back as straight as possible, and without moving their arms, something totally bizarre. We both let out a scream, and our screams, my father's and mine, hid my sister's scream for a moment. She was screaming, "There it is! Here it is!" and pointed to a bush next to his door less than a meter away. When I turned around, I could only see the face of what seemed to be an old man coming out of the bush, smiling with a toothless mouth, apparently laughing, while I saw my sister scared to death. The tires of the car raised a cloud of dust when my dad accelerated to the floor. At that moment, he took the curves almost at full speed. I closed my eyes, hoping not to see anything that was out there, nothing that would scare us. Again, he surprised us appearing when we turned the next curve, and in one of them there was, coming out of a curve, a figure standing on the road in the middle of both lanes with his knees bent and his hands up as if they were scarecrows, but with his horrible old man face, watching us while he seemed to laugh at our fear. My dad almost ran him over, but when we passed by him, I felt as if in a breath he had stolen something from me, as if he had taken some of my life. We didn't stop until the gas station. We ran out to talk to the policeman who came out of the store with a coffee and listened to us attentively in the most serious way possible without making fun of what we were telling him. He reported something on the radio. I don't know exactly what he meant because it's code, but I understood the other policemen's mockery in their responses. They even took the trouble to respond to him with laughter and rudeness on the radio. "Don't worry, I'm going to check that road," said the policeman, but we convinced him not to do it if he had to go alone, that whatever we had just seen was not something he could deal with. I remember his figure at the side of the road looking out into the darkness that we had just crossed. While we walked away from him, finally entering the town, my dad never wanted to explain to us what he saw when he walked away from the car, but it was an experience that cost him health problems from which he has not yet recovered. After the first, less than positive responses, we decided not to retell what happened to us that night. Until recently, we dared to travel on that road at night again, and we have not seen anything again. Months ago on the news, we heard about some kids who used to assault passenger trucks in that area waiting in the dark. They had been beaten to death, leaving their bodies unrecognizable and shattered. My mother, who is not very cautious and speaks directly, said that they were probably the ones who had scared us that time on the road, that they had finally found their lesson. But I have a very different theory about it, and it scares me a lot to think that the bodies they found could have been us. And with this, I finish writing my story with fear on my back, running through my body again. Because just today, my father and my sister went to visit my grandmother, and they just sent a message saying that they were leaving for here, and it is already about to get dark.